Hello and welcome to the WhatCar.com podcast. This week we've got some great footage of BMW's new 1 Series Coupe and details of the fearsome C63 AMG from Mercedes. Tim Bowdler takes to the streets to see if anyone knows who this woman is. She's our new Transport Secretary. And Matt Sanger has got some great tips on how to avoid some used car scams doing the rounds. BMW is adding a third model to its 1 Series range later this year with a new Coupe. Joining the 1 Series hatchback range this November, the Coupe is likely to cost around £1,000 more than a 5-door car. That would put a starting price tag of around £21,000 on a 177 bhp 2-litre diesel. There'll also be a 204 bhp diesel and a seriously quick 135i. Packing a 306 bhp 3-litre petrol engine, this model will accelerate from 0 to 62 miles an hour in just 5.3 seconds. Expect to pay around £30,000 for this model. This coupe isn't the end of the 1 Series story either. A cloth-top convertible is on the way next year. This computer-generated image shows what the car is likely to look like. Our image is closely based around the CS1 concept, which BMW unveiled in 2002 to get the 1 Series ball rolling. If that 0 to 62 mph time of 5.3 seconds just isn't fast enough, Mercedes has the C63 AMG for you. The 457 bhp 6.3-litre V8 under the bonnet brings the C-Class from 0 to 62 miles an hour in 4.3 seconds. But top speed is still limited to a mere 155 miles an hour. You'll need to have more than £50,000 going spare if you want one, and even then you probably won't get your car until next summer. Tim Bowdler has been pounding the streets to see if anyone recognises our new Transport Secretary.
Today we're at the Royal Borough of Kingston-upon-Thames, a week after Gordon Brown became Prime Minister. Now, he's had a bit of a cabinet reshuffle, and in particular at the Department for Transport. Out goes Douglas Alexander, and in comes the fresh-faced Ruth Kelly. But in the words of Nicky's big brother, who is she? Well, previously she was the snappily titled Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government. And before that she was the Education Secretary, and she wasn't that popular. She's unlikely to be more popular at the Department for Transport. She'll have to justify road pricing, and she'll have to persuade more people to get out of their cars and onto buses and trains. We're here to ask the British public what they think of the new face of the Department of Transport. Do you recognise this woman?
No, I don't.
I recognise her, wouldn't know her name.
Is she a politician?
Well, I do recognise her, and she's something to do with the government, but I can't remember her actual name.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Who is she? Ruth Kelly.
That's right. She's the new Secretary of State for Transport.
You're quite right.
She's going to be asking people to get out of their cars and onto public transport, and also be trying to justify road pricing. What do you think her chances are?
No chance.
She's got a tough time getting people out of their cars because sometimes it's just easier to take the car.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's pretty slim, but I think she'd need a lot behind her to make it happen.
Slim.
Like, the thing is, people in this country are very reliant on their cars. Even for going short distances, they'd rather not use a bike. So I don't think she's got too much of a chance, but, you know, we'll see how things go.
With the congestion in on today's roads, I think she's got a very good chance.
You think so?
I think so.
A very tough job, but I'd go on with her.
Well, I think she needs to improve public transport a bit. It needs to be reliable. It needs to be. It needs to run frequently. It needs to get people to the places they need to get to, not within 5 miles of it. I mean, if I drive to work, it takes me 40 minutes. If I go on public transport, it takes me 2 hours. So she's not going to persuade me to take public transport to work.
Everybody's under a lot of pressure, therefore time is of the essence. Right now, public transport isn't anywhere near as good as it needs to be. So it's easy to get around this country in a car, even if you're on your own, than it is public transport.
I hope she succeeds. The roads are getting ridiculous.
You think? Why is that?
They just chock-a-block all the time, aren't they? No way to go.
It's a matter of people breaking habits because at this point it's just too easy to take the car down to wherever you're going to. Now, I mean, congestion charge, whatever, it's just a way to make money, isn't it? So.
Over to our used car editor Matt Sanger now for some details of some scams that are doing the rounds.
Now, when it comes to buying and selling cars privately, there are a couple of simple rules you can stick to help yourself not get conned. Now, firstly, never ever buy a car privately without one of these. It's the V5 or registration document, and without it, you're not sure what you're buying or whether the car's really what it pretends to be. Now, even if a car has got a V5, it may have a checkered past or outstanding finance, so the best way to find out about those is to visit experian.co.uk or hpi.co.uk for a history background check. Now, that will show you if the car's been previously written off and put back on the road or whether there's outstanding finance against it. Recently, there have been a few used car scams doing the rounds that I want to tell you about. The first involves somebody wanting to buy your car from abroad when you've advertised it in a reputable magazine. They email to you and say they're prepared to pay the list price for the car, but you need to help them ship the car back to their country. It could be Africa, it may be somewhere in Europe. They send you a cheque for the price of the car, plus a shipping fee, which they want you to pass on at a later date. You cash the cheque, and it appears okay, the money goes into your bank account. Now, a few days later, or a couple of weeks later, they may write to you by email again and say, listen, they're very sorry, but they can't go ahead with the sale. All they ask is you return the purchase price of the car and you keep the handling fee back for yourself as a goodwill gesture to say sorry for closing the deal. Now, of course, you send them a cheque, but then your bank discovers that the buyer's original cheque was in fact a forgery. Congratulations, you've just sent someone you don't know a blank cheque for the value of your car. And because the person's abroad, you've got very little chance of finding them, or more importantly, your money, ever again. I've recently heard from some readers who have seen some very cheap cars for sale in Europe that apparently can be shipped back to the UK. Now the seller says there's a very genuine reason why they need to sell the car quickly, and that's why the price is so low. Now the recent spate of these makes me very suspicious. The old cliche, if a deal's too good to be true, does apply in this case. Just be careful. If you can't work out who's being conned, it's probably you. Now you can find all sorts of buying advice for new and used cars on whatcar.com.
Also this week, MG Rover is back. 3 new dealerships have been appointed in Amersham, Aylesbury and Loughborough, and they'll start selling the tweaked TF Roadster from this autumn. New MG Rover owners Nanjing says 11 more appointments are going to be made very soon, and it hopes to eventually have a new network of 80 dealerships in the UK. A long legal battle to avoid speed camera fines has been lost.
Idris Francis and Gerard O'Halloran took their fight all the way to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. They argued that the law requiring motorists to identify who was driving a car caught on camera infringed their rights not to incriminate themselves. Unfortunately, the panel of 15 judges hearing their case didn't agree.
There's no further opportunity to appeal, so if you get caught on camera, you're just going to have to take your medicine. Burger chain McDonald's says it's going to turn its dirty cooking oil into biodiesel for its delivery vehicles. The company plans to convert 6 million litres of oil a year into fuel and reckons it will reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 1,650 tonnes as a result. Cheers.
That's it for this week. Come back next week to whatcar.com and see Roger Stansfield drive a £5 million Honda.